Hi, everyone. This is Brittnee Bonds, and welcome back to the podcast. Today, I'm very excited to have one of my dear friends, Olivia, on the podcast. Hi, Olivia. How are you? How are you doing?
Good.
Olivia and I met up last week here in Berlin, and we've known each other for how many years? Like 8 years now?
Yeah, maybe even more.
We met like back in Bali many moons ago, many
lives ago.
many lives ago. And she reached out to me because she wanted to reconnect and also have me do a human design reading for her. And then when we met up, I was like, girl, I missed you. Like, I missed hanging out with you. I missed the girl vibes. And our conversations were just rapid fire, like flowing. And I was like, do you want to be on my podcast? And she was like, actually, yeah. So then we scheduled it for this week. And here we are in the beautiful Victoria Park in Berlin. You might see random people walking by in the background being like, what the heck are they doing? Which I love.
Yes. We're here to be weird.
We're here to be weird. I'm in my alien outfit, if you didn't notice. And in today's podcast, I think it would be really beautiful to share some of the themes that we were talking about last week. Like, since the last time we saw each other, you've become a mom, which congratulations.
Thanks.
I'm very happy for you. And also like married and a mom. Yeah. So those are two things.
Check.
If we're on that list, check.
Yeah. It's not like that.
No, that's what's so funny is
I
like,
know.
yeah. We were just talking when we walked over here to set up about like you getting married and stuff. And I was like, did you have a traditional wedding? And you were like, nope. So there's a lot of things we want to go into as like two empowered women in our lives, living this beautiful life. We both have traveled a lot. And also, what does it mean to be a woman in her feminine, but also a boss babe who is, you know, having a career, having a child, having a husband, and what is that journey like for you? So I think to dive right in, like the best question that I want to ask you, or like the first question I want to ask you is, last week when we were talking, you were talking about how you felt this, I will term it, kind of sacred rage when you had your baby girl. And I want to ask you more about that. Like, what is that for you? Why did that happen? What do you think it means? Because I think a lot of women actually feel this. And for some women, it happens when they have a kid. For some women, basically you have some major thing happen in your life, and then you kind of have your own little awakening. I don't want to say little, but you have some awakening of what does it mean to be a soul in this lifetime? What does it mean to be a woman in this lifetime? What does it mean to be a mom in this lifetime? So how has that journey been for you?
Yeah. It's been, so thank you for asking, you know, and honoring that, because it's not something that a lot of women talk about, and especially mothers. I think that there's a lot of shame in...
I'm going to make this go.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of shame in talking about anger as a mom and obviously as a woman. I think for me, I'm still in this journey, so I can't like package it into some like... I'm here on the other side and here are all these learnings and insights I've gotten, but I'm here in the process and I can share with you what that's like and kind of how it started. And I think for me, the first 6 months of being a mom were so beautiful and magical. And I was in this like newborn bubble and it was obviously really difficult. But like when I reflect on that, I think about the first 6 months as really being this beautiful experience. And then something hit at 6 months that like, I'm still moving forward from, and that's just this deep anger. And I think for me, it was like, I'm figuring out all of these ways that this anger is being fueled. And in the moment, I think at 6 months, it was just like a lot of sleep deprivation and like hormonal things that were fueling it. But it was I was looking at myself and just thinking, is this my life now? Like, is this just it? Like, am I just a mom and that's it? You know, like I've worked so hard to get to where I'm at. I mean, I'm not talking like career wise. I'm just talking about like in my freedom and in my expression. And then everything just felt so hard and so different. And I didn't have the freedom that I had built for myself. I didn't have the same expression that I was used to and needed in my life. And there was just like, what the fuck is going on? And like, where do I go from here? And I think, you know, I'm also here in Berlin with my husband and partner Matt, and it's just us here. We're new to Berlin, and I wasn't, and continue to kind of not be held as a mother. And I think we don't teach our society how to do that. So my rage is fueled by this kind of, I'm just disappointed. It's like this sadness in society and how we don't honor connection and how we don't honor, like, how do we show up for people when they need help? And you can ask for help, but I think in reality, people don't really know how to show up because we haven't been taught how to show up for people. So I think it's a lot is in that uncovering.
Yeah, so I want to break this down. Thank you for sharing first off and being vulnerable. From what I understand, what you're saying is like there was two things. There was like you as an individual, you were like asking yourself, am I more than just a mom? Like there is the identity of the mother, and you know, you shifted from the maiden archetype to the mother archetype, which is beautiful. But like, what does that mean in a modern society? A lot of times that kind of means, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I've understood for a lot of mainstream people, it's kind of like you just fade away. Like,
Right.
It's just like now you're just the mom, and your biggest thing is like what's happening in your kid's life, and you live vicariously through your children, and there isn't necessarily an expression of you as an individual anymore. And then the second part is, you know, I feel like as a society, we've really gone to the extreme of exploring the idea of the individual, and we've sacrificed what it means to be in community. And as a newborn mother, it's a very vulnerable time where in past tribal times, or even like your husband's Jamaican, right? Like you were saying that in his culture, it's like very family focused and like everyone's supporting you and da-da-da. It's like usually a new like mother is like an opportunity to lean in and like receive more.
Right.
And like lean in more to your softness.
Right.
And in today's culture, when you don't have that support network, a lot of moms have to lean more into their masculine energy to like get things done and protect your child, and just like basically the opposite of softening.
Yes, I know.
And that is like a really rude awakening. Whereas I think maybe in the past when you and Matt were together before you had your baby, it was like not as evident, you know? And
Totally.
just the timeline, you guys moved from Singapore before you had her?
Yeah,
Or-
I got pregnant 10 days into living in Berlin.
Oh, wow. Okay. So
Baby girl, she was like, you guys are in Berlin. This is where I want to be.
oh,
So
that's beautiful. She knew as a soul she wanted to
Yeah.
be born here. That's really beautiful. But like, how long did you live in Singapore for?
5 years.
And you had a support network there, right?
Yeah.
So do you think that if you guys had her in Singapore, it would have been
No.
different?
No.
No. So you still, so basically even the support network you had built for 5 years, you felt like it wasn't conducive to supporting you as a mother.
No, because I think that, you know, of course there's ways that you can outsource help more easily in a place like Singapore and in Southeast Asia, but it's like, you know, the helper culture or like kind of the nanny of bringing in just like, I don't want help raising my kid. I just need help doing everything else.
Yeah, like you were
know?
saying, like someone to clean the house,
Yeah,
and just like
and
to cook things
that's
so you can be
helpful
with
there.
your kid. Yeah.
But I don't know. There's still, I think in Singapore, it's still this like very materialistic, production based, right? Like your values based on how much you can produce. And I think in a lot of our cities and countries and cultures, any place where that is made as like the primary value, I think the experience of the mother's always going to be uphill against that.
Yeah, and I think this is just speaking to a bigger issue that us as a collective is figuring out in our psyches right now, is we've really led as a society in the masculine energy. And we have, all of us, man, woman, other, have masculine and feminine energy in us. But if the leading culture is not balanced it's not integrated within the masculine and feminine, then when a woman leans more into her feminine, like, is she supported in that? Or is it going to be like a slap in the face, like you were saying? Like, no, you need to be more in your masculine because this is what we do, you know?
Yeah. And we don't really know how to support women in their feminine.
As a mass consciousness, like as a culture.
Yeah, as a culture.
Yeah. What would you say you would need more of, or you desire more of, in order to feel more support?
That's a really good question. I think this, like, a lot vulnerability. I think kind of normalizing vulnerability, normalizing difficulty, just is a really good place to start. You know, that can be done just in friendships and relationships. But I don't know. It's like I have so many answers. I almost don't even know to start. I think, you know, in work, it can be look one way in the sense of, I don't know, don't book meetings when I have my calendar booked for kids.
Yeah, and that
you know,
happens.
like, yeah, you know, I mean, I know that's very like a kind of a specific thing, but it's like just the honoring of people's lives and like people's lived experiences and knowing that everyone is on their own journey. I think just having more compassion for people in general.
Okay, we're back. We just tried to move out of the sun. I love that Berlin is warm now. I'm very grateful for it. And also, my Irish skin needs a little bit more shade. So, again, thank you for sharing. I would love to dive deeper into how, like, I always believe that when these things, like when the sacred rage of anything comes up, there is a deeper truth that we are uncovering. Because I feel like as a woman, when we really access our anger, it's kind of like, for me, anger is like, this is not working. Like, this is not okay. This is not working. And then there's an opportunity to either go into like victimhood, which is okay for a while, but then like I feel like the bigger opportunity is to step more in your power and be like, this is what I'm gonna fucking change. Like, channel that energy into, I want to make the world better in this way, or I want to be different. I want to show up more authentically, or whatever. You know?
Yeah, I think it's like giving voice to women's experiences and to mothers' experiences and to what it means to be a woman today, and like how much the world needs feminine energy and feminine power today. And I think, I know it's kind of corny in the sense of like, you kind of build it in your home first, right? You really work on it within yourself and within your relationships, and then it kind of expands from there. And I'm figuring that out in my relationship, and how kind of these feelings and this rage is going to be productive. You know, I know it will be. And it is now, because it's sparking important conversations that I'm having with my partner, I'm having with other women. I think that's where the changes for me happening now, is just kind of giving truth to power a little bit.
Yeah.
And
how
uniting through that experience.
And how powerful it is to speak up, especially when things are not working, and be like, what is the answer here? Like, to allow yourself to be in that mystery of like, I don't have the answers, but I'm in the middle of allowing myself to figure it out.
Yeah. And I think as well, there was I've had to go through a shift of being like, what is wrong with me? Like, why am I having these experiences, to being like, oh, I understand. It's my response to the world around me and like things that I'm seeing. And I think it's really hard for me, but I also think, you know, as a collective, to separate what is happening in the world and like what we see in the news and with our own experiences. And I get really overwhelmed by what's happening to the world, to women right now in the world, you know, especially being American and seeing what's happening there. And it's fueling this rage that is like showing up in my marriage, you know, and I'm trying to figure that out too, of like, you know, yeah, my husband is Jamaican, and I asked him kind of a question, because he grew up in, you know, in Jamaica where everyone is black, and then he went to the US. It was like, when did you first realize that the world was a racist place, you know? And it's like, I feel like I'm coming into this awakening, realizing a lot of things about the world that I hadn't realized before. And like, how do you move forward from there, you know, and use it as a way to activate positive change instead of just being angry?
Yeah.
You know?
And I think that's what I want to speak to here, is like, I think it's really important to allow yourself that space to feel your feelings. So I'm not trying to be like, let's quickly move to the solution, because that's also masculine energy. Is like, and we all have that inside of us. And so I'm not trying to be like, brush your feelings aside, get to the positive. I'm just saying that sometimes, especially as a woman born in a female body, sometimes when we are in that place of finally really allowing ourselves to feel it all, sometimes we can get a little like,
it's
like,
intense.
like sink
Holy
into
shit.
it.
Oh my God. Yeah. Because we're always trying to make everything seem okay. You know, like
such deep programming as a woman.
You know, we want to make everything okay. And I think that there's a real beautiful element of that and a nurturing element of that. But we try too hard, you know, and like
totally,
it's everything isn't okay. And like, that's not okay. You know, there's also a lot of it's, you know, somebody even sent me this thing the other day. It was like, it's okay sometimes for your village to be just you and your husband as kind of like a cute thing. And I was like, actually, no, that's not okay. I know. I'm like, that's what it is. And this is not sustainable. Let me tell you, you know, it's like, we just have so much programming. Yeah. And this kind of unraveling happens. And it's just like, I think, the what's happening in the world versus what's happening in your inner world and your world is like really enmeshed right now.
It totally is. I think right now in our lifetime is one of the biggest moments that like an individual can have such a big impact on the mass consciousness, because in the past it was like you really only had news outlets, or like, you know, before social media, it was like, where did you get your information? It was probably just in your local community, or it was happening like regionally or nationally. But now like we're literally making a podcast. Like we can affect anyone in the world right now. So all of us have this power to like really change things. And I think that's beautiful. But I also believe that like within that, sometimes it's easy to get in the overwhelm mode of like we were talking about this earlier, like so much information that it's like, where do I even start? But the most important thing is to not become what I call an NPC, like non-playing character. So if you're in a video game, like the computer generated random characters that are not played by real people, they call them NPCs. And in today's world, I think a lot of people, you were saying this earlier, are becoming just so passive because there's so much information. It feels like all of the answers are out there, but they're really not, you know, and also we need to be the master creator of our own lives and create a reality that feels good for us. So yes, we can take all this information, but we need to like literally take action and do things in our lives that are empowering for us and take responsibility for our lives. And I think that's really beautiful that you're like looking at this not from a place of like disempowerment, but more like this sacred rage and like allowing yourself to feel it. And then like, what am I going to do about this? Like, this is even what we met about last week. You were like, I want to channel this somehow into something positive. I don't quite know yet how, but like I'm on the mission. I'm allowing it to unfold, you know?
Yeah, totally. And I think like when it, you know, about NPCs and motherhood, I feel like, yeah, it's almost like you become a mom and they're like, okay, now you're an NPC, you know, like now like you're immediately kind of funneled into this.
Like you don't have a voice anymore.
Yeah. And it's so fucked up.
Yeah. But it's only if you choose to allow that to happen.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of societal pressure to do that, you know?
Societal pressure and there just isn't the infrastructure, the policies, you know, it's like, as you said, we're kind of in this extreme individualism. We've pushed it as far as we can go. And like, that is not,
it's not working,
a place to raise families and to raise mothers and, you know, and children. And it's like making it really difficult.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about this last week, but like I grew up in what a lot of people would consider, and I would consider a religious cult. But on the positive side of that, I grew up in the embodiment, like I felt in my body what it felt like to live in a really deep community. Like my dad had cancer when I was 7, and like everyone within the church like showed up. Like they did meal plans, they picked us up from school, like they gave us money if we needed it. Like there was just so much support, and so it felt like, like I don't have to do this all by myself, you know. And of course, I'm not going to raise my kids in a religious community that also programs women to disempower themselves and shame and blah, 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 blah. But from the positive side, I also choose to have my children into some sort of felt sense of deep community, like as a mother first. And so on the island, this is why I, like 5 years ago, when COVID happened, I made a community space with my ex-partner, and he was also raised as a Jehovah's Witness. So it was really interesting because we had the same kind of background in programming, and we wanted to transmute it into something positive, you know? And so our real question was like, what will it take to build a community that we feel safe to have our own kids into one day? Like the support network, the infrastructure, like a real community, you know, and were raised in one, so we knew what that felt like. And I felt like we made some sort of prototype and it was working for a while, but then COVID ended and everyone left and the island became very transient again, where people were leaving. And I feel like when people are not committed to like a place and a community and like putting their energy in, like the energy dissipates and then it's like, what are we even doing here? You know, it becomes consumerism again. And I think that's again because people don't have this experience of what it feels like to put your energy into a community and receive it back in like this beautiful, abundant, spiraling up flow of energy. They're just like, I pay for this thing and I get it and And I was sharing with you last week that like, when I have children, I will only do it in an environment like how it is in Asia, where you can like hire the support, you know, like the cleaner, the maid, the cleaner, the cook, the nanny. And it's just because I want to have those things taken care of so that I can have more time with my kids and also make sure I have time to do the thing I'm meant to do, like the impact I'm meant to make in the world. But a lot of my friends in Asia do have this. Like they have like that whole...
It's a dream.
It's a dream. And also it's pretty affordable.
Right.
You know, like compared to the West, like my friend who has this whole setup, she was saying that like it costs about $2,000, so about 1,700 euros a month to have a cook, a driver, a maid, a cleaner, a live-in nanny. And
oh my God.
Yeah.
Literally like a woman's dream.
Yes. But also she still feels lonely sometimes, you know? And I think it's because you can have all of those things, but like it's very different to have like your sisters watch, like, you know, like your spiritual soul sisters watching your kids versus like a Thai live-in nanny, you know, like who's like getting paid to do this.
For sure. I mean,
like energetically, it's very different.
Yeah.
So like I would like to have both. I think it'd be really nice to have the paid help, and also I'm manifesting the community, you know. And a lot of my friends right now are literally like driving around the world, like looking for land so that we can build this community. And I'm here for all of it. I just spent a lot of time trying to build that community myself, and I felt like there wasn't enough energy. Like I always feel like I'm like 5 years ahead of everyone else, and now I feel like so I kind of stepped back after COVID, and then I feel like now my inner crew of friends are like switching on and hitting the age where they're like, I also want kids. I also want to build this community. Let's do this. So
nice.
I'm manifesting it. Let's see what happens. Yes. I'll report back.
But it's true because, you know, like I'm, you know, being from the US and living in Germany, my experience was like a dream for most American women and mothers.
In what way?
Because there's no paid leave, you know, in the US. Like the lack of support for pregnant women and new mothers is abysmal, you know, like in the US.
Extreme.
It's to the extreme. It's so bad. You know, so when I see what like kind of the women in the US are asking for, it's just like paid leave, these kind of basic things that I received in Germany, you know, I'm so grateful, but I'm also like, it's not just policy. I mean, you have to have the policy, but there's like this whole emotional side to what you're saying that's all about social responsibility. And we just have not been taught any sort of social responsibility. I think the closest thing we've had has been in religious communities.
Yeah, it's kind of the last place for like this ingrained tribalism.
Right. And like,
but unfortunately it comes with a lot of other fucked up programming.
But it's like,
but it's still nice that it's there. Like I will say that's a positive side.
But yeah, like the positive elements, those community elements.
Yeah.
So when I talked to my husband about maybe his experience as like a young boy in Jamaica with his mom and stuff like that, you know, or like for Mother's Day, I was like, well, what would you guys do for your mom for Mother's Day? And he's like, well, it was always celebrated in the church, and like the church would throw like a big meal or whatever. And I'm just like, that's so nice. You know, where it's like, you know that the mother will be held no matter whether the dad is having a bad day or like what. It's not just dependent on like the dad to show up. You know, because also a lot of men haven't been taught how to show up for women and how to hold women and how to hold space for us. So,
yeah, I think it's important to bring all of this to the forefront, because I do have a lot of the listeners on this podcast are moms, you know, and they message me and they're like, I think it's great that you're living this life in Thailand and you feel so free, but I have a kid, so I can't do this. You know, like basically just completely cutting off that reality for themselves, that they basically disempowering themselves, in my opinion. Like, it's not possible for me. And I always write back like, everything is possible, whatever you want. Like, I have some of my best friends on the island, the ones that have my dog Afro. They are a young German couple with a 2-year-old boy, and they decided we're just gonna move to Thailand and we're gonna make this work, you know. And they made it work. It's working. They're there. And so I think it's also beautiful to have you on here, because you're like in some sort of constellation
between worlds.
Yeah, like you've created your own reality, you know, where you're like living as a foreigner in Germany. And I mean, you still get the benefits because your daughter was born here, right?
Yeah, and I'm an EU citizen too.
Oh, see, I didn't know that.
So we get amazing benefits here. Like I get 250 euros a month from the government because I have a child.
Forever? Like
until I think like at least until she's 18, but it might be through her schooling. I'm not totally clear.
But and then
but
also
like,
you get
insane.
And you get childcare for free, right?
Yeah,
like,
childcare is free until she's 6. We got over a year parental leave.
Both of you?
Well, you get, I think it's like 14 months that you can split,
okay,
essentially. So you decide. So yeah, I mean, it's just like next level here. And
it's funny because when I talk to my German friends, they're like complaining that this is like not good enough.
Right.
And us Americans are like, what? We're like, this is so great.
Help me, I'm poor. Literally. Like we're poor in our like emotions and soul and like everything in our support. It's like we're asking for the, Americans in America or like moms in America are asking for the bare minimum, you know? And like, it just kind of shows how much work there needs to be done and how big the rage is, you know, how much women are suppressing, how much they've been silenced, you know, and like, it makes me think of this, you know, like this 4B movement in South Korea where like the women are saying like no men, no dating, no marriage, no babies, like at all. And what they're doing is like essentially taking the true power of creation back and saying we're not willing to create in a world that suppresses us, you know, where we don't want to just bring more life into this world that's already needs so much help. And I think it's such an amazing, empowering movement. But I think what's kind of fucks with my head is like how it's just making men actually more angry at women.
Yeah, and I think the biggest way to disempower is like to point two people at each other instead of like, let's work on the same team.
Exactly.
You know, because like the men born into the society are just as much programmed as we are. So we all need to just kind of wake up individually and then come together and fix it instead of be like, you're the problem. No, you're the problem.
I know.
I don't think that's healthy at all.
No.
But I want to speak to, I think it's beautiful that we're talking about all of this because I think it's really important. Like, I really believe that each one of us has so much potential to create our reality. And the more that people wake up to this, like there's probably a lot of women who are listening to this that are like, I thought I was the only one who felt like this, you know, like maybe they didn't even feel comfortable talking. Like you said, you have like a group of moms here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel comfortable talking about this stuff to them?
Yeah, I think probably the depth of which I go will vary. I think I feel really comfortable speaking with you because we're on the same wavelength, so I can kind of just be open. I think it's like I do, but it's also challenging because I don't know, when you're hanging out with moms, you're usually with your kids. You can't, you know, it's like every 2 seconds you're just having to stop the conversation in the middle to like
ADD.
Yeah. So you can't really go so in depth, or when you do, it feels a little bit like you can have a 2-minute discussion about it. But it's also I get a little I guess nervous sharing because I don't want to like put
That's what I was going to speak to. Yeah.
like, yeah, I just don't want to make my experience like their experience.
Yeah, but this is what I mean is I wonder how many women that are mothers are doing the same thing. So they're not speaking up because they're worried it will create disconnection when in reality probably having a lot of the same lived experience. And so if it was shared, it would create a more deeper connection, you know, because we were being authentic and like, oh yeah, this is how I really feel right now. And I'm not saying that you need to do that, but this is what I ponder. I'm like, how many women out there are like feeling the same thing as you? And they're all just like, it's fine.
I know.
You know, and even like my friends that are German, they're like, at least in Germany, we tell each other how we feel. Like if we're having a bad day, we'll say it. And it's not like in the UK or America where it's like super happy all the time. But I was like, yeah, but like the Germans have a whole other thing of like not necessarily as I'll just speak culturally. I know I'm generalizing as a culture being as able to be vulnerable, you know, so they can say like, yeah, it's fucked up. I hate this or whatever. But
they can complain.
They can complain.
I'm a New Yorker. I understand. Yeah.
But like, how are we able to be into like our deep vulnerability with it? You know, of like this really is upsetting for me, or I feel this way or that. You know,
it's so difficult to. I think with moms too, you want it to be this like magical experience as well. You know, you want to be like, everything is beautiful. I'm with my child and it's amazing. And like,
but where is that coming from? I feel like that's sold programming.
Totally.
Like,
I know.
Like, is this from Disney movies? You know,
probably
like, because like when you're in a relationship with your partner, you're never going to think it's forever. I mean, again, that's Disney movie, Happy Ever After. But like with kids, it's like, where is this? This is, I think I know this from being in the religion and being married and having my friends have kids very young. It was kind of this like keeping up with the Joneses thing where
totally
like, and now we have 2.5 kids and a dog named Spot and like, check and like everything's perfect. And it's like, but that's not real life. Like in no reality,
we're not robots.
Yeah, and we're meant to grow. So like through the growth sometimes is challenges and like that's the opportunity for growth. You know, if it was just everything's perfect forever on out, then you might as well just be back in spirit, you know? And I'm not saying that it needs to be hard in the sense that it needs to be like negative challenges. You can have really positive challenges if you feel, I feel like everything can be a positive challenge if you feel connected to yourself, connected to the people you love, and you're like doing it together. Like for me, it's like when I'm with my soul family, my crew, I'm like, I don't even really care what we're doing because we're doing it together. And this is like what feels good. And I feel supported in that.
I mean, so my daughter's 2, when she was 1, I did this like mama's ceremony to celebrate being a mom for 1 year and also returning to work. And I had some close friends and my mom and my sister and my midwife there. And then my yoga teacher ran it. And it was beautiful and just like so special, this energy and everything that we were doing. And after my midwife was like, that felt so good and that's how it's meant to feel. You know, it felt so good because that's how it's meant to feel, you know, and I just kind of like kept repeating it of like, this is what women are meant to be feeling, how we're meant to be held and hold each other and just connect in this like feminine way, you know. And
wait, so how did it feel though?
I mean, I just felt so supported and loved. And, you know, it was like, there was little like ceremonies that we did throughout this little like mama's circle that we were doing, but like just touching and holding, you know, and like there was a moment where they like wrapped me in scarves and then like unwrapped, you know, it was just like, I don't know. And then I live my day to day and I don't have that, you know, and it's
so it was like a felt sense of like, I'm here, I'm touching you, we're connected. Yes. And I also emotionally, energetically support you.
Yeah. And just having that feminine energy and allowing everybody to show up in their feminine energy. I think that's the thing too, is like when I'm talking with other moms and my mom friends, everyone is just in masculine energy, you know, because it's like we just have to do and go. And there's just so much shit that we're responsible for that it's like hard to connect in this like soft, intuitive way.
So let's talk about that, because that was one thing you were asking me about last week, about like how you followed my journey over the last 8 years. Like we haven't really seen each other in many years, right?
Yeah.
But we follow each other on social media. And you were saying something about, because like I think when we met, I was very in my masculine energy. But how did you perceive the journey or something about the feminine?
It was,
I want to hear.
Hold on, let me try and think for a second. I think it was, oh no, it was from the human design reading. You were kind of giving me some insights and like about being more in my feminine and then relating it to your experience. But I was like, how do you do that? You know, like you're telling me that like I'm meant to be doing these things or feel this way based off of my reading, but like there's no way that I can show up in this way. Like, how have you done it? You know, and I think it was because we were like, oh, last time we talked was about these master classes.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh yeah, I was really feeling like I had to do.
Yeah. And I think for me, the big transition was when it was like April of 2020 on COVID. So it was like lockdown. I was on Koh Phangan, so a small island. It was locked. I had my only ever scooter accident. I got dengue and a really massive breakup all in 1 month.
Oh my God.
And
purging.
Yeah, pretty much, like to the point where like I couldn't get out of bed.
Oh.
And I had 3 friends who were like my neighbors and also my close friends literally show up for me every single day. And one of my girlfriends, she even like slept in the same bed to make sure I was like, didn't need to go to the hospital. She was really worried about me because I was so sick. And I just remember one time all 3 of them, so all 4 of us got in my bed and we were all just cuddling and I was in like dengue fever and I was just crying because I was like, you guys, I literally can't do anything right now. All I can do is receive. And I just felt so much love in my body. I was like, these people have my back. Like I'm in a foreign country with no family, like no support, but this is my support. And that's when I started saying like soul family, like my chosen family, because these are people that like have your back when you are very, very sick. Like dengue is like malaria, you know, it also fucks with your emotions and everything. So I think that was the beginning point of my kind of masculine unraveling or like leading in my masculine energy. Because I still believe that, you know, as integrated humans, we choose at different moments to lead in our feminine or masculine, no matter what body we're in. But I also talked to my godparents that month and they asked me a really pertinent question. They were like, when was the last time that you didn't work for a month? And I started crying because I was like, I just was crying a lot during this time period. But I was like, I think before I was 18, you know, because I always had to support myself. And even when I was like traveling in like these luxurious places all over the world, the people on social media probably thought, oh, wow, she's like living the best life. And on the surface I was, but energetically and emotionally, I was operating very deeply in like a wounded masculine energy of like, I don't feel safe in the world and I need to be productive because I don't know when the other foot's going to drop and like things are going to fall apart. Like I basically just didn't trust the universe. I didn't trust that I was held. I didn't trust that I was safe. And so they were like, what would happen if you just allowed yourself to take a month off and just didn't work and just flowed? And so I did this. I took the challenge. And at the time I was making like some of the most money I'd ever made because it was lockdown. I was doing consulting for teams to help them go remote. So like I really had the most amount of work I wanted in that field at that moment. And I just stopped. I like closed my computer. I was like, bye. And I just went to a bunch of workshops on the island that were like more about being feminine. And I hung out. I had a women's circle at the time where we met every single week for 4 months or 6 months, I think. And every single one of us, there was 8 of us. And then for me and 3 other of the women in the women's circle, we ended up getting a villa together. And it was one of the biggest opportunities for me to really be around women who were like deeply in their feminine energy. And like all of us showed up differently in that. And so we all like consciously like learned a lot from each other. And I think I just slowly, like that was the beginning. And it took 4 or 5 years. I don't know how long. It's still going. But it was the beginning of me starting to realize that I had the choice of whether I was going to believe that I was safe in this universe and that I was supported by the universe, by my people, and that there was people in my life. Basically, I held the vibrational reality that it was okay for me to operate in my core feminine, like lead in that, and that basically I led on that. I like stepped out into the unknown, and then I was like, okay, universe, support me. And there's been so many opportunities and situations where I have been validated in that over the years, like through relationships, through around that same time period, I manifested like $15,000 just like out of the blue. And I was just like, whoa, there's like magic is real.
Yeah,
and
holy shit, it works.
yeah, like it really works. And so because I'm someone who's like, I'm really going to walk my talk. Like, I'm not going to just be like, hi, on social media, this is what you should do, guys. And then in the background, like, there's something
drop shipping.
Like, whatever. There's something else, like, completely different happening. I'm like, no, this is what's really going on. I want to share this with you. So, yeah, does that answer what you...
Yeah, I think it's about how we're showing up as feminine.
Okay, we're back. We had a little technical difficulties, but we figured it out. So... just to bring us back into what we were talking about, you were talking about the experience of like, as a woman wanting to be more in your lead and more in your feminine energy. Like, how was it for you when you had a kid?
Yeah, I think that the first 6 months were so beautiful for me because I was expected to be in my role as a new mom, you know,
like
and I was
no one
still
expected
healing.
anything of you.
Right. Nobody expected anything of me. You know, I was like still healing and figuring things out. And then there's this thing that happens maybe at 6 months, and speaking with other friends who've become moms, it's kind of similar for them, where it's like, all of a sudden you realize that the world is kind of still moving and you are still responsible for all of this shit that you kind of like forgot about, you know, and pushed to the side because you had much more important things to be doing. But then it's this holy shit, like I have to be responsible for all of this plus be in my role as a mom. And like, how can I be soft when I'm just responsible for so much? And like, I feel like now I'm expected to show up at work like I don't have a kid, and, you know, parent like I don't have work. And
so when you were in that first 6 months, did you feel soft in your body?
So soft. It was amazing.
Aww,
and I think that's why
let's go into that more.
Yeah, I think that's why I loved it so much. You know, it felt like my husband was holding me really in like this very supportive way, you know, just in little things from like cooking and like doing the dishes, doing things around the house. I just like didn't even have the expectation on myself of like keeping things clean or...
So you didn't have this like programming that you need to be productive all the time.
Exactly. I was just happy to like sit and mush and go for walks and lay in the park with my new baby and
just
be sleep deprived and take naps in the day, you know, and like be nourished. And
so this is where I find it interesting is, again, I've never had a child, but like it feels like a external situation that happens where you allowed yourself to receive and you allowed yourself to kind of drop into this soft place where you didn't need to be productive. Things, you know, like things will get done, but they don't need to be done at this certain time in a certain time frame. It's like, it's okay. You know, like you can just be.
I really miss it.
But my question to you is like, is there a way where you can incorporate this into your life now?
That's a good question. And there's been moments where I've tried to, but I think it's almost come in this like not in a great way. So like there've been moments, you know, where I'm just like, I think it's now almost driven by overwhelm, actually. It's like where I'm not going to do the dishes or like keep things or respond or whatever. But instead of it coming from like, I'm going to take this as a break for myself and be soft, it's like, I'm so overwhelmed right now. I can't even do it.
So it's not like a gentle unfolding.
Yeah, no.
I would say that's even more like a wounded masculine energy of just like, fuck everything, you know, like I give up kind of thing.
It's really hard to now lean into the softness. I don't know how to do it.
Is there a feeling that if you allowed yourself to lean in, like actually lean in, not like out of overwhelm, but just a gentle unfolding, is there a fear that like things will just fall apart or like not get done?
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I think that, and there's definitely fear. I don't really know where it comes from.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's things won't get done, or things won't get done. I think that's it, actually. It's just about producing and being productive, and like things don't get done. I don't know.
Yeah. So when I was doing your human design reading last week, I was like just really recommending for you to, or inviting you to follow your intuition more. And that is kind of also the opposite of like a very linear masculine drive of like, this is my to-do list, I need to get this done, and of course like you can get things done even in your feminine energy, but I wonder if it would be a fun experiment for you to try for a day or a week to be like, you know what, I'm just going to do what feels good.
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't get done, let's see what happens. I like, the most important thing is that I feel good in my body today and that I feel soft. I notice with myself that the first indicator of me feeling soft, because we can also rationalize a lot of this and intellectualize ourselves, is my voice. When my voice is like right now, my voice is soft, that means my body feels safe, I can unfold, and I know that when I'm in this energy, it's a vibrational reality. They actually have done studies of this. When a woman's voice goes up when she's around a man, it invokes his masculine energy to take care of her more. So this can be like anywhere. Like you can be at the grocery store. You can be like, I had a thing where my bicycle was breaking a lot recently. And I invoked this. Like I on purpose was doing it as an experiment. I wasn't trying to manipulate anyone. I was just like, I need help. I'm going to see what happens when I allow myself to receive help in my feminine energy. And what ended up happening was a lot of opportunities for men, just random men in the street or, like men in my life to show up for me. And it felt so good. There was like a positive energy exchange of me allowing myself to feel soft, allowing myself to receive, them stepping into their, like using their energy to show up for the feminine, which if you've done any research on this, just it adds more masculine energy for them. So like a lot of men are like, why should I show up for women? Like, these podcaster men, Andrew Tate or whatever. And it's like literally it gives you more life force energy when you show up for women and you like allow yourself to use your energy to protect, provide, create a safe space for them. But it also is an opportunity for women to allow themselves to receive that. Like someone needs to start this loop.
Right.
And I feel like for me, I was like, I'm going to use myself as an experiment. Let's see what happens. And it just made me feel really good. Like I was like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm just going to allow myself to receive. And I was like, using my voice to start with, so for everyone who's listening, for you, like, I don't know, it's a fun experiment. You
totally.
Can try.
And it made me think too, like it must have made the men feel good too.
Yeah,
it's
totally.
like we don't give a lot of opportunities, and it's not necessarily our fault for men to show up for us as men or in the masculine, like
to take care of us,
and like for me, I know I'm in my masculine a lot and I don't give my partner those opportunities, and so for me, I think when you say maybe spend a day or a week, I think maybe if I start with a day,
start with a day.
But it's true, like just being very conscious of it, and instead of it coming from a place of overwhelm, being like a creator in it, or even just kind of setting up opportunities where maybe I could be like, okay, I was going to come at it from this place. Let's be conscious of this. Let's use some of these things, like coming into the conversation with being conscious of my voice and how it's coming across, and invite opportunities for men or for my partner or for I work with a lot of men as well at work, like to show up in ways that can allow me to be a woman and feel supported, even if they don't know that they're doing that.
Yeah, you don't need to consciously tell people
No.
like I'm doing this social experiment. I think also
I would love that.
let's break this
After,
down.
yeah, be like, oh, by the way,
you passed the test. But yeah, like I think another thing that really I learned, I love that people are watching us right now, is that to be the voice thing, and then also to literally directly say, hey, I really need help right now. Because I think this is so vulnerable as a woman to be like, I really need help. Because what if they say no? What if it doesn't work? What if they expect something from me? Like, there's so many things that go through our head when we say that. But it directly invokes masculine energy. Because, like, the biggest way for a man to show up for women is, like, when she's like, I need help. And it doesn't need to be, like, you don't need to be help in a survival mode.
Right.
You know, like when my bike broke, like I would be able to get home. But like I could use help with someone pumping my tire. Thank you. Like I really need help. Can you help me? And when they can, I notice when I ask like directly, like I need help and they can help, it like makes them feel so in their masculine. They're like, wow, I showed up for someone. Like the biggest I've learned like through a lot of this research and through lived experience is like the biggest way a man feels like his life is like meaningful is to show up for people he cares about. You know, like, oh, I showed up for her. It made her life better. And so when we can also communicate like, wow, I needed help and you helped me and I really appreciate this. Like literally this made my life better. This made my day better. Oh, that gives them so much beautiful masculine energy. And
you're giving me some really good prompts or like things to just say day to day in my relationship even.
Yeah.
You know?
I think it's like fun, like just use it as an experiment, like see what happens, you know, and to go at it from the angle of like, I'm overwhelmed. That's not like a fun, if someone's like, I'm overwhelmed, I'm angry, show up for me. That's a very different energy than like, babe, I need help. This would make me feel so good in my body if you help me with this thing. And they're like, oh my God, yes. Cause like you're already coming at it in this soft place. And so they want to support that softness and like amplify it. If we come at it from this already angry, overwhelmed place, they're going to help us because they love us, but that's not necessarily going to give them the same masculine energy exchange, you know?
That's really good insight. That's a really good insight. Thank you.
I get really excited about this stuff because I feel like men really want to help us.
Totally. Absolutely.
They want to show up for us and then we don't let them and then we complain about it.
I know. No, totally. I know. It's all fucked up. It's all messed up. I don't know what the solution is. But yeah, these like little steps of kind of creating these opportunities and these windows for men to show up for us and for us to show up in our feminine.
Yeah.
Like we need these opportunities and the world isn't necessarily going to give them to us, right? Like it's up to me to bring that into my life, to remember and kind of create these windows of opportunity.
Yeah, but also it's so beautiful because you have the power. We all have the power to create our own reality. I think this is also like, it's important to feel that sacred rage so that we get to the point where we are a creator. We step out of being an NPC.
Totally.
And then we're like, okay, I'm going to be the master creator of my reality. How do I do this? And then you start like all these things I'm sharing with you. I've just learned over the years, experimenting, doing my own research, coaching a lot of people, seeing what works for them, and just being like, oh, it's so simple. You know, we make it like really complicated and put all the patriarchy and like all these big words when it's like, you could just let someone show up for you and like be soft, you know, it could be that easy.
I know. It's true though. Like, I think we're meant to think it's complicated. That's like part of the programming when it's actually just so easy. It's just right there, you know,
Yeah. I want to share one more story is that I, right now I have investment for my company and the investment comes from a friend of mine who just supports me so much that he came to me and he was like, I just want to make what you're doing in the world like worldwide. So like whatever money you need, whatever support you need, whatever contacts you need, like I'm going to be your first investor, but I know you're going to have many more, but I'm going to like be this for you. And I just started crying. I was like, because for me, it was like such a big opportunity to receive and it felt so vulnerable. And I felt like old me was like, I need to put together this pitch deck and I need to create this contract. And he was like, I don't even care if I get the money back. Like, I just really just want to invest in you, like make sure this happens. And I was just like, and a lot of my friends were like, do you trust that? Like, are you sure there's not expectation here and this and that? And I was like, no, I really do trust it. You know, and I think this is also part of the opportunity for me to be more in my feminine is to trust it and not think that there is a negative thing
Right.
around it, you know,
Right,
because
right.
like if I didn't know him for over 5 years, and if we like didn't have like many situations we've been through where we like really saw each other in very deep parts of ourselves, like I consider him some of my soul family. Like I'm gonna have him in my life for my whole life. So for me, this is just one more layer of our connection. And it'd be like, for me, it's the same as like if my cousin was like, I'm gonna invest in you. You know, like that's the kind of the same level of relationship I have with him. And so for me, but it was still like such a big opportunity for me to lean more into my feminine, because I was like, oh, I can create from a place of pure pleasure and like pure support. Like, and imagine the amount of softness that has created in me. I'm like, it doesn't, like we were talking earlier, I'm like, it doesn't even really matter where I'm at, because I'm creating like wherever I'm at, and I'm fully supported wherever I'm at. And so for me, I can just like go through the streets and like shine my light, because I'm not in survival mode, you know, and I can slow down because I have this investment like of like we're moving things forward. So it's not just me anymore. You know, I have this like masculine structure, and that has led to other opportunities where now I have more investors, you know. But I think if I didn't have that initial support, I don't know if I would have been in the energy to feel soft to receive even more support. Because for me, it's really hard for me, or in the past, it's been hard for me to allow myself to receive support, because I just thought it always came with something.
Yeah.
Like there was a catch.
Right.
And this is such deep programming that we have as women. Whew.
Yes. It's a lot. But
It's a
I
lot.
think like, yeah, creating these opportunities where we can also trust ourselves, and we can trust our feminine, which
trust
is our
the men in our
intuitive,
life.
and trust the men.
Yeah.
You know, and I think kind of going back, I think one of your first questions was like, kind of, how are you moving through this? And like, what are you gaining kind of through this sacred rage, you know, and how are you kind of looking at it, or what are some insights or whatever? And I think that it's really shown me that something needs to change, right? Like something needs to change. It's going to change. I don't know what it is, but I'm leaning into anything that gives me curiosity or pleasure, or just a good like hunch, you know, that intuition where I'm like, that's interesting. So even just like reaching out to you is like part of that, you know, where I was like, you know, Brittnee's in Berlin. I'm really into what she's been up to, and like the energy, and we connect. I want to reach out and have a conversation, you know, and like I'm doing a women's retreat next weekend. It's my first time going away for the weekend from alone since becoming a mom.
Like first time away from the baby.
Yeah. And
allowing yourself to receive.
Right. And going to like with other women, you know, I'm also really kind of wanting to lean into like women's circles and running women's circles and creating more kind of intentionally creating my life around me. And I don't know where it's going to lead, but like I don't care, right? That's really, I'm releasing.
Yeah, and you don't need to know.
Yeah.
Like I think that's also leading in your feminine. It's just trusting the next step is going to unfold, and it's the beautiful journey of like, if this feels good, I'm going to keep doing it.
Exactly.
And I'll go there, and then if it doesn't feel good, I go over here. You know, it's just flowing, just full flow.
Exactly.
And that's how I live my life now, and a lot of people are very confused by it, but I love confusing them, because I feel like it also is, I'm like a glitch in the matrix.
Yes.
I'm like, you can also live
the
like this.
Glitch that everyone needs. Yeah. Brittnee Bond.
Glitch that everyone. Yeah. Hashtag. Okay, so I want to wrap it up here. I feel like we could keep talking forever, but I am worried my SD card went full a couple seconds ago, and I had a little panic. I hope I'm manifesting hardcore that the first part of this podcast is on there. I know it is. Everything's working out perfectly, but I really enjoy and I'm very grateful that we did this.
Same.
I'm so grateful that you're in my life. I was saying this to you earlier when we got a chai, and I was just like, I just love that, like, at every moment in my life, there is people where I feel like this soul connection with, you know, and that we can talk about these really deep, real things, you know, like, to me, that is what being a human is.
Yes.
It's not perfect. It's that we are in it together. We're figuring it out. We're like these explorers, like trying to understand our own psyches and everyone else's, and also make the world a better place while we're here. And I really believe that you are one of these people. So thank you for existing.
Of course.
And for sharing your story and being vulnerable. Is there anything else that you want to say before we wrap it up? Just want to like give you the mic.
I guess if there are any other Berlin mamas out there.
Aww. Is there a way they can contact you? Like maybe on your Instagram?
Yeah, on Insta. I mean, it's private, but you can DM me, of course.
Okay, I'll put your Instagram in the show notes.
Okay. And just to any other women who are listening and mothers, like, let's do this. We've got the power. We've got it. We have everything that we need to come together. And it really is just through women coming together and the community of women that
totally
it's up to us to really create this incredible world that's just so close. It's just on the other side.
It's happening. We're creating it right now. I love it. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up and we're going to get out of the sun. And I am sending you guys all lots of love and I'm very excited. By the time this gets published, I will have a play party, a vanilla play party coming up this weekend on June 8th on a Sunday. So if you want to come, reach out to me on Instagram. I'll give you more info. And other than that, just keep living your best life. Keep shining your light and like taking responsibility. You have the power to create whatever reality that you want. And I will keep saying this and invoking this in all of us because the more we remind each other, the more we remember. It's all about remembering. Okay,
thank you, Brittnee. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so happy. Okay, we'll see you guys in the next podcast.